We're a proud member of the Paranormality Podcast Network. This episode is sponsored by Audible. You can start your 30-day free trial by going to audibletrial.com/paranormality. On this week's episode, I sat down with Aniel from the Magick And Mediums podcast, and we had a great chat about real magic and how real magic is actually out there. We talked about psychics, we talked about mediums, aliens, and conspiracies. It was all around just a great time talking with Aniel. But before we get into that interview, welcome to the show. I'm Jack Kirby, and this is Paranormality, paranormal podcast we listen to. Be sure to check us out on all our social media, Facebook, Twitter, and Instagram. And also, if you want to get in on the conversation, join our Facebook group, Paranormal Podcasts We Listen To. All the links are going to be in the show notes. Hello, Aniel, and welcome to the show. Thank you for being on.
Thanks for having me.
So I got to say, I am really super excited because I love the subject of magic and mediums.
Me too. I just picked my two favorite things and put them together and was like, that's the name.
That's awesome. So before we jump really into this, can you kind of explain the difference between magic and magic?
Yes. Magic with a hard K is magic that's real, that initiates real change in the real world. And it's employed by magicians, witches, light workers, who are working with black, gray, white magic, and everything in between. Magic with no K is, what you see on TV. That's illusions, and street magicians employ that to trick you, to entertain you. But magic with a K is the real deal.
No, people do. They get those confused. And even on the website, I have magic spelled with a K. And all my friends are like, you spelled magic wrong.
Yeah, that's how you know who does magic as well. Those who just don't say anything about it, you're like, I see you.
How would you describe your podcast if someone's never heard it before?
I would describe my podcast as a light and fun touch on magic. It's just providing a platform for occult authors and people who work in the world of magic to share their experiences of magic and to teach little tidbits about it from their own perspective. I think what makes my podcast something that I really enjoy is the fact that it doesn't have that scary music in the background or talk too much about conspiracies in a negative light. It's very just like, it's real world magic for real people.
And one of the things that I really like about your podcast is you do have a very subtle, beautiful music in the background. It's not harsh, and you just flow with it. Coming from a place where I am intrigued by magic and mediums and psychics, I really didn't have a grasp of what it actually was. And in your podcast really goes into detail and gives your life experiences. And I enjoy that. I enjoy listening to all the different things that has happened to you. And I want to touch on some of those later on.
Thank you for that. I just feel like it's so important to share your voice. And that's one thing I love about podcast is you can share your voice and there's nobody that can say anything about it really, except in the comment section. But you're just, saying your perspective. And I just think it's so beautiful to share your perspective on topics that people are a little shy to discuss. So I was happy to talk about blood magic and some other kind of taboo topics in a fun way.
Your blood magic episode, I had to skip it. I listened to it, and then you said menstrual blood, And I just I can't take it.
I lost you there.
You
I
lost
don't
me
know
there.
how I did that.
You know, there's only one thing that will actually make me vomit, and that is that. And my wife knows that from my other podcast, and she says it all the time just to see if she can make me do it. It's a really good episode. I just kind of had to fast forward through some of that. But that is a really good episode. So if you can actually handle the fact of talking about menstrual blood, you should definitely check that episode out.
Yes. Thank you.
So where can people find your podcast at?
Wow, we're all good podcasters streamed. iTunes, Spotify, Google, iHeartRadio. Yeah.
And what social media platforms are you on? And do you have a website that people can check out?
Yeah, so I do have a website. It's magicandmediums.com. And you guys guessed it. It's magic spelled Magick. And I am on Instagram under that handle. I'm not really active on other social platforms. But yeah, I'm the most active on Instagram. And of course, magicandmediums.com has all of my stuff there.
You know, I'm really lazy when it comes to social media. I do Instagram and I have a Facebook group. And
Mm,
that's the only two things that I really, because I'm old. And
yeah.
social media like is way too much for me at times.
Yeah, I'm trying to get more active on YouTube. So I just started like a pick a card series and that kind of thing.
Are you a psychic or a medium or both? How does that work?
Both. Yeah, so I am both. When I do readings for people, I usually just say it's going to be a mix of psychic mediumistic channeling, depending on, what guides come forward, what energies are going to come forward in the reading. And how does that work is a good question. For me, I pretty much employ all of my psychic skills during readings, and it all depends on what guide comes through during a reading. So some guides you'll really hear the messages or you'll have really vivid visions. Other times I'll feel tingles on my body. So it all depends.
Does that happen only when you're doing a reading, or does stuff like that happen to you when you're just say out in public and you're going to work?
It only happens if I need for it to happen. And I'll probably explain that in more detail later. Um, so it used to happen a bit more like completely, like you can say I was untrained. And through having a sacred space and then setting up a time for messages to come through, and for me putting out, okay, I only want to receive messages when I'm at, doing magic or I'm doing a session or when I want to, then it became that. But if I'm in a place of like danger or I need to receive a message, then I will get a message just wherever I am.
So, what are some of the differences between psychics and mediums?
The main differences are that mediums are having conversation. Almost, I would say, I kind of believe that mediums is just like a graduate of a psychic. Because for me, once I started employing my psychic skills and practicing, owning in on them, then mediumship came. And then I found out I could channel. So I kind of see it as, just a natural ascension within a psychic's life. But mediumship overall is just having a conscious conversation with the energies around us, versus a psychic is very aware of the energies but isn't interacting with them in the same degree as a medium interacts with them.
Can that be a learned trait, or is that something you're born with?
You know, I I feel like I can only speak for my life. So in my life, I think I was born with it, and then I learned how to have it happen in a certain set of ways. But I don't want to be so bold as to say that either you're born with it or you're not, because I'm very just believing in various timelines and different possibilities and DNA upgrades. So I will say that if you want to communicate with other beings on a conscious interactive level, then of course you can. So yeah, I will say that it's all up to you, all up to the person. Yeah, but for me, I believe I was born with it.
When did you first realize then that you had these gifts?
Well, when I was younger, I didn't know the word medium or psychic or anything like that, but I was the typical quote unquote would, see my dead grandfather and tell my mom and my grandma about that. Or I would say things that were very like spirited, where they'd be like, oh, this is the Holy Spirit or something. So I had different things that would happen where people would tell me, like later when you grow up, they'd be like, oh, I knew. And you remember that time when you saw this ghost and this spirit? And I'd be like, I was such a young kid that didn't mean anything to me. That was just life. But then when I was probably in college was when I realized it was a thing. Like it was people were getting paid to read cards, and that this was something you could kind of center your life around, and it could be a quote unquote profession. Yeah.
Is that when you really started honing that ability? When you realized that, people are actually out there doing this?
It was, oh gosh, when I was out of college, um, and I was reading cards for myself, and then I loved cards. And so I was getting different cards from different publishers, and I was sort of like a mini influencer. So I would review tarot cards and stuff. And at that point, that's when I was like, I want to make my own deck. I want to be doing readings all the time. And that's when I started looking at it a little differently, a little more like in a professional executive light versus just somebody who's a hobbyist.
Now, you said you got into making your own deck, and
Mm.
those are available on your website, right?
Yeah, Magic and Mediums Oracle is at magicandmediums.com and on Amazon USA. Yeah, it was really, really fun to make and a magical process. And yeah, I'm actually working on a new book, which is all about how to create, publish, and sell your own tarot deck. So I'm pretty passionate about cards and helping people to, make their own and understand it in a different light than is being exposed right now.
Yeah, because I can only imagine. Because I know in one of your episodes you said you grew up in South Florida,
Mm-hmm.
and
Yes.
I live in Florida right now, and I feel that stuff like that just isn't really accepted in
Mm-hmm.
some areas of Florida. So
Yeah.
growing up, did you find that it wasn't really an accepted practice to go around saying I can do this or I'm a witch or
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So I grew up, which is very interesting. I grew up in like a Christian, so I went to Catholic, whatever it is when you're a child and you wear like the children's wedding dress. And then
I
then
remember
I went,
those.
yeah. Then I went to a Pentecostal church. So I knew all of the spiritual lingo and Christian terms. And so my family, like, it was interesting. Like, there's so many different kinds of Christians. The Christians that I were around when I was at the Pentecostal church, of course, they would be like, oh, God just gave me this vision. And that's mediumship, but it was just coined a different way.
I feel though that those people at the Pentecostal churches
Mhm.
aren't necessarily having visions. At least the ones that I've been to.
I've met some people that'll be like, oh, God is giving me a message, or I had this dream. Like, they'll tell you the most psychic, witchy stuff, but they just put like, the Holy Spirit told me, versus like a medium will say, oh, like your grandfather came to me, So, uh, yeah, I know what you mean. Some people, so that's what I mean. That's the sex within Christianity. So some people are just blatant Christian witches and they just don't know that they're witches.
Do you want to find other paranormal, conspiracy, horror, and sci-fi podcasts? Visit paranormalityradio.com.
My mom was very like kind of against me making this deck, and she doesn't even want to like acknowledge that I made this deck, that I'm selling this deck. I remember I was upset about work one day and she was like, you know what? I think it's this deck. Like you opened a portal when you made this deck, and that's why your life is going this way. So she's very, she knows a lot of spiritual concepts and is magical, but it's with this Christian perspective. So I was around people who, if you told them about crystals or told them about how you're, manifesting this in your life, they would look at you a little side eye. But if you used words that they knew and liked, like I made a vision board or I wrote in my Bible, like what I want Jesus to give to me, they'd be like, that's great. So it's all about the terminology you use, I feel, with the people that I grew up around. But overall, making this deck that I made, I literally have a demon card in there. I'm like sex magic. It's not really something that certain people in Florida would approve and use.
Let's get into some of your experiences that you've had. Actually, my favorite one that I actually really, really couldn't wait to talk to you about was when you had your episode and you were talking about interdimensional beings and astral projection and multiple universes.
Oh. I'm like, wait, so which experience exactly?
I think that was all like one experience. In one of your episodes, you were talking about crystals and amethyst, or not amethyst, but it was a green.
Okay. I think I know what you're talking about. I've had multiple experiences of this, so I'm like, which one? But I think I know exactly which one you're talking about. Yes. I love the fact that we can just travel so easily. And this totally like changed my world. I'm not big on traveling and getting on planes. So this is just like
Well, nobody wants to get on a plane right now.
I know. I was ahead of my time. So I'm just like, once you find out about astral travel and multidimensional travel, like there's just no need to ever leave your house. So yeah, if you have some crystals and you just know how to get into the zone, set up a grid, or even just put yourself in a circle, or obviously you don't need to get so elaborate. You can, once you do it enough times, you can leave your body without all the fancy tools. But yeah, once you do it, I feel like you will never feel like buying a plane ticket really in your life. So I think the one that you're talking about, it could be when I was setting up a grid and I had neumite and some other crystals, and I went to some like Celtic land and I could see like a door and it was like etched with this like, I don't know, Celtic embroidery. And I saw this being that was like half woman, half elk, just like staring at me. And then like days later, I see this image again, and it turns out that it was the image of a deck that I never saw before, which was oh my gosh, I can't even think of the name, but it's a Celtic deck. And I immediately bought the deck afterward. And I had another experience where I was just like, you know how you have crystals in your hand and you're just like communicating with it. And it was neumite, and I went to like this almost like an isolate cave, and I saw what looked to be this unique creature which had that mask that like doomsday preppers like have in their basement. And I was just almost like following him into this cave, and it was very interesting. I learned a lot about fear and kind of fear as an entity from that experience. Then I had another one where I went into one of my multidimensional bodies where I was this German girl taking a test. Another one, I go into the dragon realm occasionally and I have my Viking looking avatar there. Lots of different experiences.
I would love to be able to jump into parallel me at like
You
some
can.
different part of my life or part of my
Hopefully
time.
the best timeline though. I don't think you want to jump into like a bad one, but yeah.
No, I mean, because I guess when you're talking about multiple realities and parallel universes, every single choice you make spurs off another
Yep.
infinite universe. I would totally be scared to get lost and not find my way home. Actually, when I was young, and by young I mean like 4 or 5, I would have this
Mhm.
reoccurring dream, and I think it was a dream, not 100% sure, but in the
Mhm.
dream I would wake up and I would be 3 blocks away from my house, and I would have to walk home, and I I remember laying in bed, but I kept my eyes closed until I made it all the way back to my bedroom and laid in my bed. Then I would open my
Mm.
eyes.
That is so cool. And it
And
kind of reminds me of an experiencer situation.
I can't 100% say what it was, but I saw some really trippy lights when I was younger outside my bedroom window, and it looked like it was close, and it was like reds and greens and
Mm.
whites. And you could honestly mistake it for like an airplane, but it was so close to
Mhm.
my window that I know a plane wouldn't be flying that low in a residential area
Yeah.
where I could see that. And so I never really thought of that.
I mean, you just pretty much confirmed it with these like lights, but I don't know. It sounds like that. Anyways, just wanted to throw my 2 cents into there, but I love that story.
I like it when people go in and say, well, it could be this. Because I don't think like that. I really don't. I have a very logical, scientific mind.
Mhm.
I'm completely open to everything, like paranormal, cryptids, you name it. I,
Mhm.
I I can get down with that. A lot of it. Like I can't get
Yeah.
down with flat Earth. That's
That's
crazy
not
to
on our
me.
timeline. That's another timeline. Another dimension, but
But I mean, yeah, some of these conspiracy theories and stuff like that, I can get down with.
I have completely accepted that I used to have this theory as a magical thinker. A lot of people have this where everyone in their life is a reflection of them. They take the oneness to an extreme. So, us having this conversation is what are you here to teach me? Like, what are you reflecting back to me? How did I manifest this? You know? And then just from being more in my heart space, I got to a place where I was like, that can exist, but there's another reality that's you have nothing to do with me. And like your stupidity, your intelligence, your whatever is completely independent of me. And that's kind of where I am now is like accepting that there are people from different dimensions, from different perspectives, from different timelines in my time, in my reality. And I can't, hold them to the same standard because it might sound mean, but they're just not at my level. And I might not be at their level. We're just the way that I think creates a completely different reality that they will never have access to, and vice versa. So I can't be upset or, judge them.
No, I get that, and I never really thought about it like that. And I mean, I guess I have when it comes to like aliens.
Hmm.
Because that's been in the news a lot lately, extraterrestrials and how there's like 36 different extraterrestrials that could possibly be trying to contact us and all that. And then
Only? Who said that?
that was actually in like, it was an article in one of the, I don't know if it made it to like national news, but I know it made it to
Mhm.
like, I think I saw it in the Washington Post and a couple other different papers like that.
Disclosure is official. I mean, if it's in the Washington Post, I think. Okay, so this is kind of going back again to my theory of how whatever is around us is a sort of a reflection of us. Like if I see you because I'm capable of perceiving of you, so there's a bit of me that resonates at your frequency. So I think as we rise our consciousness, we're able to perceive of various things that do exist, aka different alien breeds. Or we can just keep it simple and say different planets have popped up, because we're able to conceive and perceive of this. Technology has advanced, and what was always there, we're just now seeing it, quote unquote, discovering. So I do think that aliens are just like that. People are just waking up to what was always there and are able to accept it in their mind without exploding. But I also do feel that it is a bit of disclosure too. I think I'm a little biased because I'm a psychic medium. So obviously, when you're a psychic medium, people in your circles will already be communicating with Pleiadians, Andromedans. There's literal star seeds you're in your circle. So I think I'm a little biased. Like, I'm just like, duh. But I think overall, people around us are waking up to the fact that it's real and it's not, a joke. So many things we're talking about years ago, people would like laugh at us and think that we're high.
Oh yeah, I mean exactly. I mean like Star Trek, like original Star Trek.
Mm-hmm.
Like half the stuff they put on original Star Trek you can find in society today.
Yep.
So
Was that disclosure?
And I really do like that about your podcast too, that you throw in the sci-fi. You're like, you talk about like with the crystals and how they transport you.
Mm-hmm.
And you use sci-fi references, and that's my thing. I'm a sci-fi nerd. So I'm a comic book nerd and a sci-fi nerd. So I like when people do that with their podcasts. They throw those kind of references in there. Because it really does kind of make me think. I'm like, are they getting that from like real experiences and real things?
Yep. Fantasy is just another, because at the time they would call us crazy to put out our experiences as nonfiction. So I think everything that you see on CW fantasy or in a fantasy book, dragons, fairies, that's all real. Nobody's that smart.
I mean, I do feel that stuff like that has some kind of base in reality, or else
Yeah,
people wouldn't talk about it.
exactly. And it wouldn't connect with us so hard
Like
at a deep, deep
werewolves
place.
and
Oh, yeah.
vampires
Mm-hmm.
and stuff like that.
Mm-hmm.
If there wasn't such a thing, we wouldn't have
Mm-hmm.
these stories.
Yep. Yep. Yep.
And not only that, they're from everywhere. It's like every society has
Yep.
fairy lore,
Yep.
has vampire lore, and
Mermaid.
werewolf lore.
Mm-hmm.
And
Yep.
but not all of them have Bigfoot lore.
No.
So sorry, Bigfoot.
Yeah, I completely agree with you. And I'm going to so get off topic, but I have to mention it because it so ties in with, I think, a lot of what some people and other witchy podcasts are talking about this idea of certain things, cultural appropriation, or like certain things being for certain people. And it's like, when we're talking about mermaids, we're talking about werewolves. These are concepts, things existing in other dimensions that anybody who's a psychic or medium can have access to. So it doesn't matter if I, as a psychic medium, connect to it where I am in New Jersey now, or you connect to it in Florida where you are. It's exists, and it's not existing because I saw it first or you saw it second. I just feel that some people are getting like so confused about their connection, and because a connection or because a sighting is seen by this person first and written about this person first, that they have a claim to interdimensional history telling.
I just wanted to take a second to talk about Audible and how you can start your 30-day free trial by visiting audibletrial.com/paranormality. When I'm not listening to podcasts, I love to read. But the only problem is I don't have enough extra time in my day to sit down and read a book. And that's why I love Audible. And with thousands of titles to choose from in all different genres, the trouble's not going to be finding something. The trouble's going to be choosing something. But Audible is more than just audiobooks. They have podcasts, guided wellness programs, theatrical performances, comedy skits, and they also have exclusive Audible originals that you're not going to find anywhere else. You get a free book every month, plus you get 2 free Audible exclusives every month as well. So be sure to head over to audibletrial.com/paranormality and start your 30-day free trial today. audibletrial.com/paranormality.
And we see that in occult literature sometimes. Whoever, like in the old occult books, they tell with goddesses, let's use Hecate. I'll use Hecate as a prime example. Just how she has evolved depending on who has interacted with her. So there's going to be these people who are the staunch, 1600s Hecatean devotees will say Hecate is this way because I read it in this book and this is how she comes to people. And then there's people modern day who are like, well, Hecate came to me in a red dress and she's still Hecate. And then there's these whole debates on like who's right and who's wrong over their own interaction with this spiritual being.
I feel that if a spiritual being is gonna come and visit you, they're gonna do it in a way that it's gonna make you feel comfortable.
Exactly.
And not be the exact same every time for every person.
Yeah.
Now, have you ever had a shared experience with somebody, like when you're with your friends who are also psychics and mediums?
Oh, so when I do channel for my friends who are witches, that's a lot of fun because they will see. So for instance, I was channeling for a friend like way in the before COVID was like a thing.
In the before times?
Yeah. What is it? BC, before Corona. So, but it was like on the cusp, people were kind of talking about it, but nobody knew anything about it. So we were like, oh my God, let's try to channel to find out more about this. Let's see if we can really dive deep. So I was kind of channeling actual COVID, which was fascinating. And then there was an angel that came up in the reading. And so we did a video chat. And so I'm channeling this angel. And my friend was like, I'm actually seeing, these like lights and things behind you. So that happens where she feels the energy of what I'm channeling or can add more into like how the energy looks. And then another friend, when I'm channeling, she'll be just like shuffling cards while I'm channeling and gets like more information about the energies during it as well, which is really fun. Even sometimes if the person's not even psychic. So sometimes if I do a reading and a spirit of a past loved one comes in, they just start crying, not from what I'm saying, but they're like, I can feel that energy too. So yeah, there are some shared experiences, shared sensations sometimes. Do you feel as if there are darker literal forces and beings behind political activity anywhere in the world?
I completely believe that not even people in government, just people in positions of power, people who pull the strings to make stuff happen, and it can go as low down as like a local police department, and as high up as somewhere in Congress, the presidency. I don't know. Maybe we've had a president who was an alien.
Yeah,
Who knows?
Yeah, there's so much in the DNA that we don't know about. We have our, ancestral DNA and we have our spiritual DNA.
I've never heard of spiritual DNA. What is that?
We were talking about fairy lore being pretty much everywhere. There's fairy lore, mermaid lore, pretty much around the world. And there are some, I don't know the exact families, but there are some people in Ireland today who, in their family tree, do have Fae lineage who admit to that, who have Selkie lineage and admit to that. And so that is the type of ancestry that you're not going to find on 23andMe, but it is in your family line. And you see that with some people, that some people are like, wow, you're kind of crazy. You really think you're a mermaid, or you're fascinated with fairies. And they're like, no, like I really am. There's a high chance that they probably have that in their family line, or they activated that part of their DNA that is, fairy genes. And we have that. If we're going to say we're spiritual beings and we're multidimensional beings, then there is that part of the DNA that just science can't, well, 3D science within this dimensional reality just hasn't found the means to put on paper and define and limit to this exact chromosome or protein.
So I did hear this story once, and I don't know how much validity I give to it because I've never been able to pull up anything else on it. But I heard this story where this woman, when she would touch stuff, like she'd get a white phone case, and then within a week it would be purple.
So cool.
And stuff that she touched on a constant basis turned purple. And an old woman that she didn't even know came up to her and told her that she had Fae blood.
Yeah. I mean, I've literally went on a trip with somebody who I was like, she is part Fae. And then she admitted it to me on a later date. And I was like, I already knew. But I can say this with you 100%. Yes, there are people who are admittedly part Fae. I haven't seen somebody that I would think you were 100%, but yeah, there are people with real beyond psychic skills, where I'm talking like out of this world paranormal abilities. So I'm all for it. And it's not because I like believe it. I've like seen it with my eyes.
So you're talking like powers like telepathy and telekinesis and stuff like that?
Yeah, I'm talking about, exactly. I'm talking about more than just what I do. Well, some people could say that's so amazing, but I'm talking about, yes, those stereotypical, what you see on these fantasy shows, that is absolutely 100% happening for some people. And a lot of people who are witches were doing this on a slower way. So we're manifesting, really, when you're manifesting, it is a form of telekinesis. You're bringing things towards you, but not in that immediate fast way. But on a quantum physics way, we're pretty much doing the same thing that you see in these fantasy shows. But there are some people who are literally igniting fire. There are yogis in other places around the world who are doing some fascinating things. But I've seen people that only I, from what I'm like, I know this to be true, is doing some fascinating things. I will not say anymore. But yeah, when you're in these circles, of course you're going to see some interesting things. That's the beauty of, being in this part of the world, the occult world.
I mean, the rabbit hole just goes deeper and deeper and deeper. It really does.
Yes.
And I enjoy that. I enjoy that trip. And like I mentioned, I'm not necessarily a non-believer in all this. I'm very open to all these concepts. And I heard in some weird scientific journal somewhere, and they're saying that autism is actually going to be our next evolutionary jump.
Oh, yes. Oh, yes.
Where once all the wires get where they need to be placed, because that's the only thing going on with autism, and the wires are just in the wrong places to do
what society wants you to do. But
right.
That's another story.
Because some of these people that I've personally seen that are autistic are so beyond anything I could imagine when it comes to intelligence and being able to do stuff.
Yep.
And just because you can't, function like what we call normal doesn't mean there's anything wrong with you.
Exactly.
And I'm seeing this, and I believe that. I really do. I believe that our next evolution is like autism is trying to figure out where we are going next once we get all the wires in the correct spots.
Yeah, that's also another, if we're going to bring it back to the aliens, a lot of people believe that their children, what was it before this? It was the indigo child. And
Yes.
then, exactly. So, this, a lot of people are believing, and it's not to make themselves feel good about themselves because they ended up with an autistic child. They're literally like full heartedly like, my child is a star seed, and this, them being autistic, them having whatever society is labeling as bad, is a part of their spiritual power and human evolution to make sure that we're not repeating these outdated paradigms. They're bringing about the change that is needed. They're more in alignment with the vibration of Gaia and where we need to go. They're focusing on what's actually important versus focusing on remembering stuff that, an institution called school wants you to remember.
Right.
So a lot of people who are dyslexic, they're saying, oh, that they're star seeds, or it was a spiritual advantage to them to be dyslexic because it made it more difficult for them to be indoctrinated.
I do think that people out there are having children with beings from somewhere else.
Yeah, there's already people who are admitting that they have hybrid children that they've seen. I mean, there's so many, even on late night TV, Kesha would joke about how she would have sex with a ghost. So there's people, voluntarily engaging in sexual activity with other beings. So, of course, that's going to result in something. And look at our mythology, our myths. Hercules, we have all of these half and half gods, half this, whatever.
Half alien, half, yeah,
Yeah.
half human. Yeah, no, I agree completely with that. Did you hear about what happened in, I think it's pronounced Marge, Brazil, back in, I guess it was May?
No, I did not. I don't really watch the news. I'm sorry,
Oh, this
guys.
wasn't on the news. There were so many different videos posted on Reddit and posted on Twitter and all these social media outlets of all these objects in the sky and just doing formations. And then the next day, every single video was taken down.
Yeah, I believe
Every multiple people. So, and I guess what happened from all the conspiracy stuff that I listened to is that was supposed to be a peaceful interaction between us and an alien
it.
race.
Mm-hmm.
And they took it as hostile and actually shot down
Oh
one of the UFOs. And then the US got down there,
my God.
supposedly shot a hole in the ship.
Oh my God.
One being died and two escaped.
Oh my God.
And supposedly they blocked off the a huge area in the wilderness where they needed to find these escaped beings. And there's actually some audio out there
Mhm.
from a military. It was a hacked military audio where they were talking back and forth, and the person on the scene literally said they are not human.
I'm getting chills and I love it so much.
And then supposedly, then the very next day, we were sending up an unmanned spacecraft. That very
Mm.
next afternoon, it was already set scheduled to launch. And then right before they launched, they decided to man the expedition.
Ooh. I love Reddit for this.
I don't know if that's confirmation enough for me. I think it is that
Mhm.
that was actually proof that,
Mhm.
I mean, yeah, the Tic Tac video, that was something. But when hundreds of videos from multiple people disappear off the internet, you have to have some power to do that.
Yeah. I mean, there is cyber magic. So I think about the frequency too. Like you said, there's power in that and such advanced technology. And we people who are, aware of cyber magic know about the various frequencies that you can, control. So I think I'm just thinking of like who would have deleted it. Would it have been like an alien race? Like how? Oh,
I think it was our
okay. I know.
governments who erased
Yes.
everything.
Yes. I just was watching, is it John Oliver? It was either John Oliver or Asan Minaj was talking about a company. Oh, it's not Skynet, but it's something like very similar where like if I were to see you at a bar and so there's a Russian app where it's like you see a hot guy and you take his photo like discreetly and then you have it on this app and it pulls up every picture of you like even when you were 5. And so this app, especially, I don't know if anybody's heard about this, but I forgot the name. But in light of COVID, certain apps are starting to just get more permissions because this is like opening up the field for less privacy. So this one app just pretty much can search all of the internet for like this one photo. So because I've seen that, I figure there's something that can search all of the internet for like a video that matches the specific frequency, just like YouTube with the copywriting of the songs.
Oh, yeah.
So, yeah, so it must be like with video, just like searching all of the internet for that one video to take it down. I don't know. I'm trying to understand the whole mechanics of this takedown.
Because it was real. It's something you can't hoax. So if you have just say me or you, we post a video of a UFO flying over Jersey and there's just 2 videos up there, they're not gonna worry about that. Those are just 2 crackpots that think they saw something and it was probably just a jetliner, or some private craft. But when you have 100, you have a town of like 600 people and you have that many different videos and different views of different, that pretty much confirms that was real to me.
Was this after the fires? You said it was May of last year?
No,
or
this
when
year.
Was it?
Like, it was either, May of it was May of this year.
Okay.
So not too long ago.
Yeah. Ooh, there's so much going on, man. I love it. Okay.
Yeah, the world is changing rapidly right now.
But more is coming to light. Like I remember growing up, I would see those trashy magazines with like aliens where people saw an alien and it was so like, like fun gossip trashy, but it was real people like I saw an alien.
Oh, like the Sun Times. Yes, I love those.
So, I mean, this is nothing new.
No. That's the only reason I went to the grocery store with my mom when I was a kid was so I could check out the magazine covers and figure out what was real and what wasn't. That's Men in Black. They really did. I think that's true. They look at those crappy whatever the hot sheets they called them, which was all the tabloids to find new aliens. I think that was probably more realistic than what people think.
Oh, yeah, completely. And that's why I wanted to kind of ask you about what you thought about disclosure. I feel it's so, just so true. But also, I feel that when you watch these things, I'm going to go back to cyber magic. I feel that it is disclosure, that they're revealing things that do happen as a possibility in a specific timeline. But there's something about putting it out into the world that's not just about preparing people for that. It's actually helping them or making them choose and accept that reality as possible in their timeline. So it's amplifying it. There's a certain magic and manipulation of the focus of watching TV that's known by whoever is projecting that image so that it strengthens the possibility of that happening.
Let's just say, for instance, right now, a UFO comes down from the sky and just all over at one point in time. I think a lot of this bullshit that's going on right now in the world would just instantly end. And I think that
Oh
would be
yeah.
awesome if that would happen.
Yeah. Uh
Like
absolutely.
Ronald Reagan said it best when he was talking about his speech. Uh, and he was talking about uh, us getting along with other countries, and he said that if we're visited by an alien race right now, how quick would we be to put down our differences and just be people?
Mhm.
And I
Yeah.
really, really would like that to see that happen within my lifetime.
We would see the different kinds of people though, because there's always going to be, even if it's the most benevolent alien race that comes down, there's going to be that faction of people who are so in fear and are like, we have to kill them no matter what. And if you're friends with them, you're our enemy. And then there's going to be people who are like, but they're loving. So I feel that we can say, like, there is the human race. But I do feel that even in the human race, there's these different attributes that some humans exhibit more than others. So I think there would still be a division.
No, you're absolutely right. There would be a division. Did you ever watch the TV show or the movie V?
No.
It's about reptilians, actually.
Oh,
It's about the reptilian aliens who came down, and they at first they disguise themselves as human.
not to cut you off, but have you ever seen a reptilian in real life?
No, I have not.
I looked up V. Looks scary.
I mean, it was
Yeah,
made in the
reptilians.
'80s, so it's not as scary as you think. But for the '80s, it was pretty scary.
Yeah, reptilians are not my fave alien breed. But overall, you know what? I will say I do think that some, I guess, races or breeds do get a bad rap because I did hear a unique channeling from someone who was like, what you see about reptilians is not the whole story. And I actually channeled a reptilian once, and it wasn't all that bad.
I have actually never seen anything that I would consider to be an alien species, to my knowledge. To my
That's
knowledge.
good. That's really good.
Now, are there some people out there that seem a little off to me that I was like, hmm, yes, but
Yeah,
I can't, say, well, he's doing some weird shit in his office. He's an alien because I've never seen that. Like he's eating rats or I don't
oh
know.
my God.
I mean, I figured that's what reptilians eat, or like because they're like lizards, right? They eat
That's
bugs,
true.
and that. I
Ugh.
mean, I that could be totally off. But before we get out of here, what is your favorite podcast that you're listening to right now?
It's Spooked on Luminary. And it's my absolute favorite because it look absolute absolute best because it legitimately scares me. The sound effects, it's literally just like being in a scary movie. And I don't like to watch scary movies, but something about listening to it in my headphones and the sound effects and like the paranormal stories just sends tingles down my spine. So that's one of my favorite podcasts to listen to right now. Spooked.
I feel like when you listen to a podcast, your imagination runs wild to where
Oh
when you're
yeah.
watching a horror movie, you're stuck in what
Hmm.
the director thinks that you should be watching.
Yes.
So I
Yes.
I do love those audio dramas like that can make you think and make you envision stuff. So once again, how can people find you? Your podcast platforms, your social media, your website?
They can find me at magicandmediums.com, where of course magic is spelled Magick. And that is the same as my handles on Instagram. And yeah, so I'm online, magicandmediums.com.
And
And
you'll
the
be
podcast is Magick and Mediums.
and you'll be able to find all those links in the show notes, so be sure to check those out. And once again, thank you for coming on. I really appreciate it. I really enjoyed it.
Thank you. Bye bye.
Well, that's it for this week's episode. If you like the show, go ahead and share it with all your friends. Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, TikTok. Go knock on your neighbor's door. So until next week, I'm Jack.